Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast. This is Bruce Hutchin, host and executive producer. Each week you will hear tips, techniques, strategies, and personal stories from some of the best and funniest whitetail hunters in North America. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you do, tell a friend on social media. If not, tell me and I'll make it better. Thanks for listening, folks. This is Whitetail Rendezvous, episode number 404. On today's show, we welcome Shawn Bailey, host of Game On, Prep to Plate. What's so important about this show? Well, if you like cooking wild game, all sorts of wild game, you're going to get some culinary delights and culinary recipes that you can duplicate in your own home. Shawn's more than just a cook, and his show is found on the Food Channel for the last couple of years. But Shawn brings humor, laughter, and more than anything else, he brings the hunting tradition. So listen up, find out all about Shawn Bailey's hunting tradition. Welcome to a unique and exciting episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. Why is it unique and exciting? Well, Mr. Shawn Bailey, host of Game On, Prep to Plate, seen on the Food Channel, is my guest today. And the thing that I like about Shawn in the warm-up, we were talking about why he got invited on hunting trips early on. And Shawn, why don't we just jump into the show right there and go from here?
You go ahead. Hi, Bruce. Hi, everybody. Yeah, we were talking about that. I thought I was a good hunter. All my friends would invite me to go on all these hunting trips. Turns out I'm just a very good cook. So they enjoyed my company as well as my cooking. So that's how we got started. Did a lot of traveling. My friend Fred, we did some Idaho hunting, some Colorado, mostly Pennsylvania hunting, though. That's what we like to do.
Yeah, you said you're from Central PA, and, whitetail hunting is huge, in Pennsylvania, no doubt. Is that where you first started or cut your teeth, it's so to speak, on venison, or were there other game animals that you started to get notable reviews on?
As far as cooking wise, or just getting into it? We started with venison because that is the most widely sought after in Pennsylvania. A lot of people have venison. We notice they make jerky, sausage, and hamburger, but they don't really know how to make anything really special with it. So that was the concept. Got the show going. Was, you know what? We can make some gourmet meals out of this because it's really delicious. It's healthy. You just got to know how to cook it. And we have a saying: you don't have to kill it twice, because people overcook it because they think it's a wild game. And the only thing wild about it is it was out in the woods. There's nothing wild. It's the same food you're going to get. Just got to have some techniques so you don't dry it out.
Yeah, you think about that, and I think about the early days, and as we showed in the warm-up, we used to, hunt in Wisconsin, and we used to do drives, and we would literally come back, whatever deer we killed that day, we'd hang them up in the barn. Pardon me, we did go to bars, but
that's right.
We were in the barn, and then, it was all hands on deck, and those deer, they would hang and they bleed them out, and all of a sudden they're wrapped, and some are heading to the smoker, some are going to the freezer, and all the pieces are going to friends and neighbors. I couldn't believe how quick they processed the whitetail, and everybody had their favorite recipes, and so the next day or whatever, we'd have a feast. It was just unbelievable, and we're talking 20 to 30 people,
Right. And you share your harvest, you're right. And if you have time, if you have enough deer, the best thing is aging venison. That's the best thing you do to make more tender and bring out that full flavor. That's one thing. And growing up, too, back when I was, I guess, the 80s, and I was a young kid, there really wasn't a lot of deer. So we did a lot of rabbit hunting, pheasant hunting, and different stuff. We trapped and everything, too. We didn't eat them. But it wasn't until later the deer population picked up a little better, and we really started, focusing on venison as well at the camp. And my camp is in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. And that's where I learned from my grandfather, my dad, my uncles. We all cook. And that's where, you look up to them. And that's how I got to start cooking, is at the camp. My grandfather and uncles.
I was going to ask you about the hunting tradition, and you just started talking about that. So let's segue into the hunting tradition, the hunting part, and then, of course, everybody in camp was cooking. So, you were expected to do the dishes and stuff like that, but you picked up some
And fill the beers. That was my main job, was fill the beers and do the dishes.
Well, how about killing the deer, though? Let's talk about the hunting tradition, how that was, a big part of your family's lives.
My uncles and that, at the time, there's a lot of kids. That was a big thing. Get into it, and we're losing that because kids aren't really going out in the woods anymore. They're playing their video games, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. Growing up, going out with your uncles and your grandfather, like you said, putting on drives, maybe seeing deer, but just the point is being out there. And I more remember rabbit hunting because there's more of a chance you can get a rabbit than a deer. And the best thing they preached was safety was always the first number one step on it. And then always utilize what you get. Don't just kill stuff. Make sure you're going to use it and cook it. And that's, you don't kill stuff just to kill it. In my camp, you took care of it and you ate it. And that's basically how we got started.
So back then, if you can remember, because we didn't have computers for cookbooks and everything, how did they hand down the recipes?
In fact, I still have notes from my dad and my grandfather in my recipe book. Just trial and error. They'd write down a little bit each time, like their sausage or smoked sausage, how long to smoke it, what woods, apple wood, hardwood. Actually, grapevines is good to smoke meat too, but they're all little notes handed down, and I use them a lot on the show. I just lost my dad here in December, but I used to call him all the time for recipes. He'd go through, use modern technology, take a picture of, and email it me. But still, those little hand notes are still going around.
And those are family treasures. They really are, because you can't replicate that. That becomes part of the hunting tradition. A lot of people think we just go out and shoot stuff, but our whole life is around the hunting tradition, where you're talking, and we're going to spend most of the time talking not about harvesting gear, but what happens when that venison's on the ground, or that rabbit or squirrel or grouse.
You're right.
And I love the fly fish. So you got brook trout and all those types of things. Then we get into duck hunting and goose hunting. I mean, it doesn't end, does it?
No. In summers, fishing pretty much, then it can go year round. You're right. And if you preserve it, that's the other thing we do. We go through preserving techniques for the freezer, like with our foraging and that too. It's prepare it, take care of it, and you can enjoy it all year long if you take care of it right.
So let's go. I know I'm starting to salivate because I want to hear some of your recipes and some of your techniques. So let's just kind of walk through. We're in the woods and it's grouse season, and we put a couple of grouse in the bag. So now we're bringing them home. What are we going to do with those grouse to prepare them for the crew, so we can have a nice little meal with some wine and some good veggies and a nice salad? How's that going to work out?
Well, first thing you do is I don't like the fact when people get an animal like a pheasant or a grouse, if you will. I like to dress it out as quickly as I can, get all the innards out so it doesn't taint the meat, and let it cool down. I put a little stick in there as I'm carrying it around in my backpack to let it air out. I don't want all that heat in there. I leave the feather as long as it protects it, keeps it clean. When I get back, usually it's just the breast and the legs. I like to debone the breast. And one of my favorite ways is I'll butterfly them open, stuff them with roasted red pepper, some basil, maybe some mozzarella, salt and pepper, close it up, and just put it in the oven. Not to overcook it. There's no fat on it. You're going to cook it at high temperature and relatively shortly, like 8 to 10 minutes, depending on the thickness of it. Then I put a little mozzarella on top and serve it with some red sauce. It's really good.
Okay, so we go back. So you take the feathers off. You've got the wings and
I mostly skin them. I don't pluck because that's a lot of work. I usually just skin them out and then wash them out. But I like to dress them out. I like to bleed them out too, but unfortunately they're already taken care of But when you got them out and pull the innards, and then I just put a stick in there, let air go through it. It airs it out. When I get back, I'll just skin it out and just take the legs and the breast off.
Okay.
Pretty easy.
So you just cut the breast away from the bone. Then you said about stuffing. So you take the left and right side of the breast, and then do you sew it together, or do you wrap it with something, or?
Well, if you first of all, you're going to eat it right off the bat, but I also like to soak them in salt water a little bit to draw out some of that blood, at least for a little bit. And of course, you want to go through and make sure the BBs are out, because I'm not as good a shot as you are. But while I do that, I pull it off the bone. I have a nice little boneless breast, if you will. Then I butterfly it open. You sort of fillet it so there's like a sandwich. And you open it up, and then you salt and pepper it, and that's where you put your stuffing, the roasted red peppers, basil, mozzarella. Then you close it back down, and you can eat it in the oven. I like grilling it too, which adds another taste factor in it. But when you flip it, just make sure you flip it closed end, if you know what I mean. You don't cut it the whole way through, so there's like a backing, like a book. Just keep flipping it that direction. That way all the stuff on the inside won't come out. Now, if you're not good at flipping, you can put a toothpick in it until it's done, and that'll hold it together as well.
Ah, okay, the old toothpick trick. Because I was visualizing, and I wish, is that on your YouTube channel, or could somebody, if they wanted to see that, would that be on the food channel?
We have a pheasant recipe that has it on it, and that recipe will be on the food channel, yes.
Okay. Well, we're talking about that.
And it's a pheasant en monte. It's another recipe too, which is basically you butterfly the pheasant completely open after you pluck it, and then you sear it in a cast iron skillet, and then you flip it up side breast down, and I put a Himalayan salt block on top of it and put it in the oven at 450 degrees, and it's real crispy. It's sort of like it's deep fried, but it's not. You'll find that recipe for pheasant as well in there, which you can also do with a grouse.
Let's talk about how people can get a hold of you or check out your stuff. We already mentioned the food channel. So, just give us a primer of where you can be found in the digital world.
Sure. We have a website, which is gameoncooking.com. You can search us on Facebook, which is Game On Prep the Plate in 30 minutes. You'll see a round guy with a black hat. That's me. We are on, as you said, the food channel. And we're also Bonko TV. If you want to see our full episodes, Bonko TV is sort of like a Netflix. It's a free television sort of app for your TV. And we have probably 6 full episodes on there. Now, the rest, the food channel, are like 1 or 2 minutes with recipes. But Bonko's food channel, Facebook, and our website's the best way to get a hold of us.
Now, spell Bonko, please.
Bonko, Bonko. I didn't know it was going to have a spelling test.
Well, I didn't want to get it wrong. So somebody,
yes.
I'd rather be, I like the people, because I've had a lot of people say, now, how did you spell that? Because I couldn't understand what you said, Bruce, on the show. I go, okay, fine.
Yep. It's Bonko TV, like Roku. It'll be on the Roku app where you get on the TV or smart TVs with Bonko.
Okay, great.
And the food channel will have a link to go right over to it.
So now, so we got the rough grouse. Now we're gonna hunt some venison. So we've got a buck or doe down, and what happens once it's on the ground? Okay, it's dead. It's there. Now we're gonna get it from the field to the plate.
Right, and I was taught. We were at a deer farm last year, and he taught me a really good example of how to preserve the meat when you got it. You got to bleed them out, because if you shoot one with a bow, it basically bleeds itself out. But with a gun, it's the blunt force that kills it. So when you get up on it, what he did, he says, this looks a little mean. He sliced the jugular, and he used his foot to pump on the chest he had to get at least 2 or 3 gallons of blood out of the neck. And that's what makes that neck meat taste not as good as the rest. You get the blood out first, then you got to get the heat out. That's the 2 main things you want to get out. So once you bleed it out, then you can dress it, pull the innards out, and try to let it cool down. Even put a stick in there to let some air flow through, depending on the temperature where you're at. But that bleeding is really important for keeping the fresh meat, and it really affects the taste. I really do believe that.
Okay, so just recap. So you harvest the game, you get up, you find it, and what you've learned recently, he just cuts the jugular and then actually forces the blood out through the cut in the jugular vein. Is that correct?
He actually takes his foot and actually sort of like an air pump, and it pumps on the chest. And it sounds a little cruel and inhumane, but what you want to do, you want to utilize this deer as much as you can. So you want it to taste good. And it's already passed, so you're not hurting it or anything. But use your foot to pump like an air pump, and you'll actually see the blood. It's literally a gallon or 2 come out of the neck, and which sits in there and I think makes the taste a little gamey. But yeah, just pump it with your foot, and you'll see it come out. Then you move it, and then you dress it out. That's when you pull the innards out. And as we say, we got it out in the field dress it.
Right. And one thing that I've noticed hunting, as I do in the Rockies, for elk are big critters.
Oh yes.
But we take them apart. We get the hide off them because it could be below zero, and if you leave that hide on them, you've insulated that meat, and it keeps the meat warm and not cold. So one of the first things we do, we get the hide off, and then we get the blood out. But I never have seen people do that with whitetails. Even in the archery seasons, they just gut it out and then they'll drag it out or put it in the ATV now or truck or tractor or whatever. But would that same thing that we do with elk, getting the hide off right away, make it taste better?
It probably could. I mean, if you put in the what's the white bags you use? I'd have the experience at elk once, but you
Game
put the
bag.
quarters in the
What's the game bag?
Game bag. Yeah, as long as you put it in and keep the flies off it. A lot of people keep the hide on it so they can age it. They'll hang it because archery and rifle season, it'll be, in the 40s, and that's okay to hang outside to age it. But if you put it in a cooler and a refrigerator and age it in that bags, I see no problem at all. In fact, it could help the flavor. But there's secrets to flavor too, though. And a lot of restaurants do it. But if you get a real gamey piece of venison, if you just soak it in milk, there's a acid in the milk that fights the bacteria, which causes that gamey taste. And let's say you get a buck that's in the rut. You really can't do too much. It's going to taste a little different. But if you just soak that thing in milk for about 20 minutes to an hour, it'll have a complete different flavor. It takes that gaminess right out of it.
Gentlemen, when I first started hunting Wyoming on antelope, because they eat sage, and basically that's what they eat. And the first antelope, I go, this doesn't taste so good. So that's exactly what he did. He said, okay, just take your cuts of meat and put it in milk, and then it'll, do what you said. There's something with enzymes and all this other stuff.
Right. There is a scientific reasoning behind it. I don't know that. I just know it makes it taste better.
Right. It makes it taste better. But so those are little tips, folks, that, are passed down. We talked about the hunting tradition, but you get things passed down by the elders, and they work because they didn't like eating gamey meat either.
No. And that's that actually tip was handed down by my grandfather. So I know it works. It was by tradition. I got it on my show here.
Okay, so we got the whitetail at home, and now we're gonna make our cuts. What's your favorite cut off a whitetail?
Well, the backstrap is always one of the easiest and probably the best cuts. But you know what? And that's the other thing. I do my own butchering, and there's this guy named Scott Ray. He's on YouTube, an English guy. He's over in the UK, a friend of mine. He went over and showed a different butchering technique where it's very low hamburger, because let's face it, we make a lot of burger and steaks, and roast is what you can make at home. But he shows step by step, like how to make a standing rib roast, steaks, and all the different cuts. Granted, their deer are a lot smaller in England, but if you get a small whitetail, it would work just as good. I highly recommend people to check him out. Scott Ray, R-A-E, and really good guy. And he does a lot of wild game cooking over there, so that's how we got connected.
So when you take the backstrap up, are you just butterflying them and putting in your secret sauce and grilling them, or how does that come from the ground, from the harvest to the plate?
Right. Well, if I can age it while it's sitting, while it's hanging, if the weather provides it, I'll let it hang, and for at least 4 or 5 days until you get the enzyme breaking down. We did a show with a gentleman close to here, and he ages venison and beef in his refrigerator for 32 days at 32 degrees, and it's like butter. It is so delicious, you wouldn't believe it. But for me, I would cut it out, and either I would age the strip itself, but if it's already aged, I would cut it out, pull off that the purple skin, and I would steak it out. But I like big cowboy cuts. I don't like little thin steaks. You can do more with them when they're thicker. Plus, they'll freeze better and they'll hold better in your refrigerator. And I'm a very big believer in vacuum sealing. I do a lot of vacuum sealing with a lot of my venison, and I'll just stake it out, 3 or 4 in each one. Cowboy cut, 2 inches thick, and that's the best way I like.
Okay, so and that'll stay if you vacuum wrap them or freeze them. So
right,
you take the vacuum. We used to do that on all our fish. I used to fish out of San Diego and catch tuna, and 100-pound tuna is a lot of tuna.
Yes.
And so we'd share it with the neighbors and everything, but we vacuum it because it would last a long time.
Right.
Now, long time's a relative term. As far as the whitetail, what's the length of the meat will stay great vacuum sealed?
I've never really lasted that long because I usually eat it before the summertime. But within a year, you probably want. And plus, I think it's Pennsylvania law. You have to have the deer from last year out of your freezer before you put a new one in. So I don't want to get in legal trouble. So I'm going to go on a year there, Chris.
Okay.
But you know what? If you can't afford a vacuum freezer, vacuum pump, if you double Ziploc them, put them in one Ziploc, squeeze all the air out, so you have like a sandwich bag with a couple steaks in it, then put them in a gallon Ziploc and squeeze the air out. That double plastic will protect it just as much. So not everyone has a vacuum packer, so that's tips we like to show too. We break it down. Here's one way to do it, here's the other way, and here's the third way. So if you take it, one Ziploc bag, put the steaks in it, squeeze the air out, take that and put a couple in the gallon bag, it will last a lot longer as well. It's the ice crystals that break down to give the frostbite taste.
Right, and I knew a guy that figured out with his handy vac, he made his own vacuum sealer. I'm going, okay, but it worked.
Yep, it's just getting the air out of the bag is all the vacuum sealer is.
Yeah, and it worked.
And we found out too, if you're going to store your meat, well, just another tip, don't put it in your refrigerator freezer because that has a defrosting cycle. So it heats up and cools down, which produces ice crystals. Deep freezer, it'll last for a year. Not as much in a regular freezer if you don't have one. But that's another tip. If you're going to store it for a while, put it in a chest freezer or stand-up freezer where it's a steady cold temperature. It's not heating up or cooling down. That'll last you a lot longer, too, and keep it better tasting.
Now, my jerky, I just put that in bags and keep it. Now, what about the summer sausage and my heat-em-ups, I call heat-em-ups, the kielbasa and all those? Talk to me about when you're making that up. How long will that stay in your freezer?
That what me and my brother do once a year, we'll do and make 100 pounds of smoked venison sausage. We go to our camp. It's a full weekend event, and we smoke it. The techniques that my grandfather and my dad taught me. And then we'll smoke for probably 3 or 4 hours, rotating them through and keep the fire about 110. We just want to smoke it. We don't cook it, so it sort of preserves it. That's also stuff in the casings and everything. That's why it takes a full weekend. But we'll take it out, take several servings wrapped in saran wrap, and then put the saran wrap in the gallon bag and zip it. I've never really had mine frostbitten, and it's been probably a year. I usually eat it pretty quickly. But they last, especially use a little bit of curing salt when you're mixing it, which will help it preserve. But as far as the flavor, with the casing and everything, just use a natural casing. I always like the natural casing better than the artificial. It tends to taste better, and it doesn't get that freezer burn as quick. But that's just my personal opinion.
So, folks, I hope you're taking notes, and like all my podcasts, you can hear it basically forever until digital world goes away. But this is going to be a great show to come back and say, oh, what did he say about that, and how did that work? And so let's.
Also, Bruce, I'm very reachable. If they get on Facebook or they message me, I get back to a lot of my fans. And in fact, I just had a fan this past week who was fighting cancer for the second time. And he was a mushroom hunter, and he couldn't go out anymore. So he just wondered where he could get them. I just happened to meet him down the town. I took him out as he was going in for his treatment, gave him a big bag of mushrooms. It's a relationship I like to keep with my fans. Now, I can't bring you all mushrooms, but we can answer questions if you get a hold of us. I'm very reach out, very, very, how can I put it? You can get a hold of me easily.
Yeah, it's just like one big family, and I call it, around the campfire, we all reach common ground, and it could be the shack,
You're right.
around the table that's been there for 50 years, and it's got everybody's, initials and the notches from the gin rummy games or cribbage games or whatever. And that's the thing about, the hunting tradition and families, things I talk about, I've been there and done it, and you see generations come up, and then you talk about handing down the recipes. That's one thing I just love about our hunting tradition, which non-hunters don't get. Your thoughts on that?
Traditions, it's really big. And I think kids are losing out by not doing the things that we're doing. And it's an interaction between your elders. And I don't think kids are getting it anymore. And I guess your memory of your taste when you can make the same thing your grandfather made, and it reminds you of all the times back when you had the time with them, it really makes it much more special. And of course, you tweak a little bit yourself, put some hotter peppers and that in there, but the basis of that flavor still comes from the love and the the memories and tradition you had growing up, which I think really adds to it.
Now, tell me about the Eastern Waterfowl Festival, the Mediterranean grilled goose. Now, let's talk about that recipe. One,
yes.
Did you have to kill the goose?
Actually, that's a funny story. We need the goose to practice, so we actually did film an episode of hunting goose, and the producer set it up and everything, and the guide let me use his Benelli, which is a beautiful gun, and we're sitting in the next to the pond and everything, and here comes these geese, and I jump up, and I'm so used to a pump. I jump up, I missed the first shot, and that's on video of me trying to pump a Benelli. It was a very funny scene. I even had to laugh at myself. But luckily,
that worked out.
Shooters. Oh, after that, it worked out all right. We did get 7 to practice on. And growing up, I never hunted geese. I never had personally a good goose recipe. So I asked a lot of different people, how do you make the goose? We all heard about the goose and the cedar plank board, right? That recipe where you spice it, you take your time, you put it in wine overnight, you put it on a cedar board, cook it real slow for 4 hours, take it off, throw the goose away, and eat the board. That's pretty much what goose was for me in the beginning. But I needed to make a good recipe for this waterfowl convention. So we took these 7 geese we had, and I went from different marinades. The guide says soak it in cola, like Coca-Cola. That took the gameness out. It was good. Left a little sweet for me because I was going to grill it. It had to be prepped to plate in 30 minutes. So I was going to grill it, so I needed to cook it fast and not slow and long where it fell apart. The other thing was salt water. And the best thing I came up was that back to milk. Milk just made it taste absolutely delicious. So I soak it overnight in milk. I also butterfly that open. And then because the goose is really, really tough, so you have to tenderize it. So you can either beat it with a hammer, but I have a nice little tenderizer which has all these blades that separate the fiber to make it really chewable. And at that point, I did a sautéed spinach with a cream cheese and chive mixture. And then I put that on a outside grill with the smoke, and it really added a great flavor. We were handing it out. People would have swore it was steak. I actually had a vegetarian come back and ask for a second one. When we were putting out this recipe. But it's a very, very simple recipe. The milk really helps it be edible. That takes care of the gaminess, the roughness, to make it tender. You butterfly it open and beat it up pretty good, and then you close it up, and it's a nice flavor. I have to give. In fact, I'd go hunt goose now again and not even think twice about it. Now the legs, I never did anything with the legs because they're a little tough. Basically, just breasted them out, but it was a great episode. We had them locking up on us coming in. We got 7, but that show's going to come out here probably the end of summer. You'll be able to see that on Bonko TV. But goose was hard. After this recipe, everyone was taking it and they're going to try it. So we were down to Maryland Waterfowl Convention. We did an outside cook, and we did 5 shows? 5 shows, and it got a great response. And everyone says, "Oh, I don't like goose," and we sort of forced on them. They ended up liking it, so it felt good to actually make something that good, and people appreciate it.
Yeah, I've had some great goose, and I've had some not so goose, and it's kind of like whitetails. It depends what they're eating on. Same thing with elk. Same thing with any game animal that I've hunted. Depends what they like cattle. They finish them off.
Right.
Well, what was the main things that finished off that game animal before you harvested them, and that made a lot of difference, to me. Now, what about like liver pate? Do you get into that end of the cooking?
Not yet. We're just trying to do the intro to get everyone, our fans, into showing how you can cook a gourmet meal and show it can be simple. We're going to go more advanced coming up after we get the crowd to back us. We don't want to start with something really difficult. That way they won't be able to really follow us. So our first couple years is going to be really fantastic recipes that are really quick and prep the plate in 30 minutes is our motto. So that's what we're sticking at. But no, I haven't really dabbled in anything like that yet. Not saying we're not, though.
Now, do you have some books out that people can go on and get a Kindle book, or is it just all digital video?
It's all digital right now. Throwing around the idea of when I was younger, I wanted to make a book called Lazy Man's Cooking and Women Who Like to Cook Like One. So it'd be all simple recipes. It's time to get it put down on the paper. And if we do a recipe book, it's going to be made for guys. It's going to have a lot of pictures in it and make it simple.
Thank you.
Oh, you need the pictures. Who likes reading when you can look at it?
Visual. Guys are visual.
Yes, if I can make a smell-o-vision to come out of the book, I'd do that too, because that really adds to it.
Well, no, you have to get those scratch things that they put the perfume on. You have to scratch it. Then
You're right, the scratch and sniffs. Exactly.
There you go. There's your tip for Whitetail Rendezvous for today.
Yeah, and no cookbook yet. Everything's digital, but it could be in the future. It all depends on how it works out.
Oh, that's great. Now, of everything you've ever cooked, what is your personal favorite that you and your wife and family sit down to and you just kill it? I mean, every time you eat it, you go, I can't believe this is so good.
You know what? The one that I was surprised it was big with my family and everything else is the one our opening episode. We did a venison wrapped in bacon stuff with jalapeno peppers, apples, and garlic. I know I do a lot of stuffing, but that is probably my favorite, to the point where my wife will even eat it and she doesn't like venison. And my daughter will eat it. And people who really don't, they turn their nose down to venison. They try it and say, wow, this is good. It's the idea it's not overcooked. It's basically the back strap cut in a cowboy cut, real thick. You want to, like I say, butterfly, the same thing. You see the plate we go here. Then that's where I put the jalapeno pepper. But you take the seeds out and the veins. You don't want it hot. I just want the jalapeno flavor. So I devein it with a spoon. But make sure you wash your hands, because you might find out later on if you rub your eyes something you wish you washed your hands. And then a very thin slice of apple, to the point where the apple actually will melt. And then garlic, fresh garlic diced up. And then you put that in the middle. And when you're wrapping with bacon, I also found don't use good bacon. Use the cheaper bacon stretches. And as you stretch it over, make a snowball. And the bacon will contract. And it will hold that thing together as you're grilling it. And as you're flipping it, consider the steak having 4 sides. And once all 4 sides have crispy bacon, the middle is medium rare, medium well. It's right around medium, perfect temperature for venison. Didn't over dry it, and also the bacon won't let it dry out. So it's like I want to say guy proof, but I'm sure someone could screw that up. But it's pretty easy, and it's probably one of my favorite to go-to meals is that fry venison. That's our first episode on Bonko. You can catch that at.
Now, you're grilling those steaks, the venison steaks? Are you grilling those, or are you using a pan, iron cast pan? Or?
I cooked them in a cast iron skillet inside, but when you're out in the bacon on the grill, you got to be careful for flare-ups. So you can't just set it there and let it go. You got to keep flipping it, but the grill adds a more of a smoky flavor. But for the show, we just did it in a cast iron skillet or any skillet, and just keep on rotating, and that's the best way to do it as well. Well, it's a good way to do it.
So we got the main course. Now, what do you show the salads and the vegetables and all that? Talk to me about, okay, so we got this prime piece of venison wrapped in bacon, and it's just delicious. What else are we serving up with it?
We serve it with a grilled romaine lettuce. You take lettuce, you drizzle some olive oil on, salt and pepper, and some spices, and then you just put it on indoor grill or outdoor grill for just till you get lines. You don't want to overcook it. Flip it, put some balsamic vinaigrette on it with some feta cheese and a little bit of, I'll show you how to make a nice little tomato flour on our episode so the guys can impress their women. Give them a tomato flour. I also did a side of roasted red potatoes, and it's so simple, but it's so delicious. I just take the dry Italian salad dressing with olive oil, cut the red potatoes in half, sprinkle it, then I put them on a bread pan on nonstick foil, face down, for 20 minutes at about 350, and it caramelizes it. And man, that is just really, really a nice compliment. All 3 of them, the roasted red potatoes, the grilled romaine salad, and then the venison makes a nice plate. And there's different colors, so it greens it up really nice too.
Now, are we having sourdough bread, any kind of roll with it? Or?
We haven't showed how to make bread. That'll be coming up, because we do have some people who are going to show us how to make their own flour, which will be interesting. I'll probably be going how to make bread with yeast rising and everything. I have done it. But no bread on this one.
Now, what about dessert?
Dessert on the episode, I made a homemade apple dumpling, which was handed out from my grandmother, but she made her own crust. And after Pillsbury came out with the dough crust, I could not put any more time into making the crust. It takes a long time. They mash it, to be honest with you. So I take the Pillsbury pie crust and I cut it in quarters. So there's 4 pieces. There's 8 total. And I'll just make my pumpkin pie mixture, and I'll take a old Granny Smith apple, peel it and core it, put a pate butter on it, put it down, cover it with the cinnamon, the sugar, the brown sugar, vanilla. Then just make a snowball out of it, put it in a pan. It's a perfect apple dumpling. Comes out great. I think Grandma might be upset I didn't use her dough recipe, but she'll still be happy it came the way it comes out. It's actually really good. With homemade whipped cream, you really can't go wrong with that.
I was going to ask about the ice cream. So you like whipped cream better than the vanilla ice cream?
I don't know if it's better. It's good, though. If you can get homemade ice cream, that tops it off. But I just get heavy cream, put a little bit of powdered sugar in it, and vanilla, and I whip it up, and it's full flavored. I'm going to go with the whipped cream, definitely for that.
Now, how about, are we drinking wine, or are we having a stout beer, or what are we drinking for beverage?
Wow, now sounds like we're in a nice date. I'm going to give you some wine. But I think we'll warm up with beer because I'm not a beer guy. But I think it goes great with a red wine, nice Merlot. So that's probably what I would go. But it goes good with beer too.
Well, it depends if I'm in camp.
Yes.
I don't carry a lot of wine to camp, but the beer goes with me.
We have an episode where my cousin actually makes wine, and he has, I want to say, 14 different variations of the berries he picks: blueberry, huckleberry, strawberry, dandelion wine. And man, it is just a nice. It's a sweeter wine. It's not like the real heavy wines, but man, it's really good. And that's on one of our episodes as well. Interview him. So that's part of our foraging. You're picking these berries and everything, and you're making your own wine out of it. So that's where we have wine at camp, but we don't really take Merlot or drink with the stem glasses or anything. More shot glasses.
How about paper cups?
Yeah, that works just the same. Yep.
It ain't couth, but it sure as heck works, and there's no dishes that goes in the fireplace.
You're absolutely right. It's with the company you're in. Now, if you're at home with the wife, you want a stem glass, I'd go with a nice Merlot. At camp, you just put the beer and the sweet wine out, and I've never had any leftovers, so I can't tell you what to do with leftovers. That's a good thing, right?
Yeah, we never have leftovers either at my house or at the camp. That's for darn sure. So again, game on from prep to plate in 30 minutes, and folks, Shawn's got it down, and he's got it down because he's a real guy, and we talk about this all the time on the show. Real people in real places, and you heard some anecdotes of who he is, and it's just so neat to be able to talk to a guy that you'd walk into his camp, or he'd walk into your camp, and you'd say, what's for supper? And if out west, it'd be some kind of steak. We'd have elk or antelope or mule deer, or we have whitetail. You can have buffalo, and then you can keep going. We got a lot of stuff to eat out here. But
that was one thing. I'm sorry. That's one thing my grandfather was big at camp is, party, have fun. But Sunday before the first day, he always wanted to have a sit-down meal, bring everyone together, and we say grace. That was very important to him. In fact, you just brought that back to my memory. I think I'm going to start that tradition back up. Sit-down meal, sit around, and like we were a family. So thanks for bringing that memory up. I appreciate that.
Well, I think of 2 guys in my life, Otto Knight and Harry Shear. Otto Knight was back in New England. That's where I started off, and he showed me how to breast my first rough grouse and squirrels and rabbits and stuff, and then Harry Shearer got me hunting out west. And I think of those guys and the tradition that they instilled. I'm instilling that to all my grandchildren, and
right.
And you share it, and it's just like in Europe, that they give them they give respect to the animal they take. In Germany, that I can't say in German, but it's the last bite, and they honor the animals, and that's another thing that non-hunters don't get, that we actually honor that which we have harvested. And then it's just the traditions and the joy. I can sit and shut my eyes, and I can be back, years and years ago in Union Center along the Baraboo River on the Rogers Farm, and big plank tables, and we're eating, Thanksgiving for 20 or 30 with game and forage,
Right.
from the farm. I mean, those memories are priceless to me. And I know I'm rambling on,
But that's
but
why it's important to us to make these memories to what kids do show up. And, show them it is fun. And that's what's strange to me is, I'm 48. I'm thinking back, wow, my dad was 48. I thought he was old, and he wasn't. But he was generating all these memories for us. So now my nephews and that, they're looking up to us to generate the memories that our parents and my grandparents gave us. And it's just as important to us as it is to them. I really believe that.
yeah, and the Native Americans I've spent time with, the elders are revered. I'm truly revered. And, people will sit and listen to the elders tell the stories and share their lives and pass down these traditions. And unfortunately, today in our digital world, we are losing that. But then you start talking to a guy like you, and you realize now through his cooking, you mentioned the recipes that was handed down from your grandfather. That's what, 50, 60, 100 years ago. I don't know. You got to help me with the date line here.
I'm sorry, what was that again?
No, I'm thinking of the recipes that have been handed down to you. Are they 50 years old, 60 years old, 100 years old?
They're older than me, so they're at least 48. Especially the sausage recipe. Yeah, I'd say some of them from my grandfather and his brother during Depression. And one of the memories you're talking about, they're sitting around talking about is during the Depression, there was really not too much to eat. And my great uncle actually went hunting. They got a nice bucket still mounted at our camp with a 22. They hunted it down all day long till they got it. And they said that was, the best thing they could do for their neighbors, everyone else. They brought meat. Everyone had fresh meat for the week. But that's a story that, as we're sitting there, I just went back on that. And, hunting's more than just getting out and killing, surviving. And it's tradition. And the stories, it's just amazing. The stories I heard growing up, we sit around our camp, we play guitar, we sing, and we tell stories. And I don't know if women will ever really get that. Do you think? No. I don't. I mean, I love our fans out there, but, hunting's a little different, sitting around and not showering for days on end. It's fun to us, and we can't tell you why.
No, dirt and guys just go together. I mean, that's kind of, women came from our rib and all the rest, all the rest. That's kind of how it went, because, I'm happy when I'm dirty
Yep.
and muddy.
I don't even notice that I'm dirty. It's camouflage to me. I think one of the biggest memories for me for hunting was with my grandfather. His best friend has taught me to play guitar. We're hunting rabbits, and I got my first rabbit with the old beagle, but the rabbit was right there, and I'm so proud of I think I got it at 3 feet as it was sitting there, but I was so proud that I got it. But then we got back. My grandfather, he treated me like it was the trophy. We got back to the camp, and he hung it up, taught me how to skin it. We cooked it, and it was like the trophy of the day. Shawn got the rabbit, and even though it wasn't that special, he made me feel extremely special. And that's probably one of my fondest memories of hunting with my grandfather is getting back there. And no matter what fish he caught, no matter what animal, it was always special to him and special to you, and he always made you feel that way. And that'll always be in my heart. And I think to spread that love for the outdoors, it's up to us to do that now. And I'm doing it through cooking. That's the best way. If I feed them, they'll listen to me longer, right?
Yeah, and it transcends belief systems. That we just want to leave it at that. People, like you said, you had a pure vegetarian, came back and said, "Can I have some more, whatever that was?"
Yes.
And they had no idea they were eating. Meat.
Well, they knew they were eating meat, but they didn't realize it was that good. They said, "Well, I'll try it," and then she was very open, which was nice. Most vegetarians are closed doors and everything. And she said, I wouldn't eat every day, but she said it was very tasty. And that was like, wow. There was also a chef there who could not believe that was goose. He says, nah, this is steak. I'm like, I swear it's not. It's goose. That was another one that felt good. So.
Well, Shawn, I could go on for hours. One, because our backgrounds are very similar. We enjoy what we're doing, and I enjoy eating very well.
Yes,
and
me too.
I enjoy eating a lot. I have eaten well a few times, but some of the best meals are in the mountains, way away from civilization. And we got spring water, and we've got ribs or tenderloins or tongue or heart or whatever, and we're cooking it up and we're eating it, and the stars are out, and it's just it doesn't get any better than that in my memory, and food is part of that.
You're
I
right.
guess that's what I'm trying to say. We hunt, then we come back and we gather together and we enjoy that which we've gotten and harvested or foraged, and that binds us together. Just like you and I, should we meet someplace down the road, it'll be like, oh, this is great, and we'll just
Right.
carry on. It like you know, and we've only spent an hour together, so
That's
that's
where prep the plate in 30 minutes came from. Is we understand, families aren't getting around a table anymore. They're not eating. So when I was meeting Shawn and Kevin, my producers, I say, most of my plates are, full dishes are, prep the plate in 30 minutes. And Shawn like, wow, that's going to work, because I'll show you how to multitask and get that on the table within 30 minutes. That way your family can sit and eat and enjoy it together. As we say, food brings families together. They all need it and they love it, right?
yeah, for eons. I mean, you're either a hunter or you're a gatherer, but then you came back to the cave and the fire,
Right.
and there's your family. I mean,
Right.
that's your tribe.
And that's
And
what's nice about our show. It's just not about meat and wild game, fish net. We do a lot of foraging too, like mushrooms. We just did an episode on wild leeks. Did you ever hear of a wild leek or a ramp? You know what that is out in
I've heard
Colorado?
I've heard of them, but I've never. I don't think I've eaten them. If I have, I've forgotten.
It's like if Mother Nature let an onion and a garlic get romantic, they would make this out in the wild. It only grows in the spring. And we just did an episode on that where I went to a restaurant. They showed me 4 different ways to preserve it. I dehydrated a couple. I made a puree. The leek potato soup's phenomenal. But we do that. We do mushrooms. So we're becoming more like a natural living show too, specializing in cooking wild game. So check it out. I mean, we enjoy what we're doing. Hopefully it comes across and you enjoy it. My big thing with my show is I like to go out and meet people and have them teach me their family traditions. And I don't take credit for it. I'll give it to them. But, if you want to share it with me, I would love to share it with everybody if it's that good. And now I think that's the only way we're going to get these traditions passed around is if we do it electronically, if you will. You know what I mean?
No, I agreed. And with that being said, Shawn, you and I could continue talking, a long time, but for the sake of your time, I'm going to say we're going to wrap the show. So give a shout out to whoever. We've given shout outs to uncles and cousins and grandfathers and grandmothers, the whole show. But take a minute or two. You got the mic, and give some shout outs, and then we're going to wrap the show.
Great. Bruce, first of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was great talking with you. If you go on the Food Channel, I am the premier chef for the month. So they did an interview with me, so you can go through and check that out. But I've just, they're gone now. Hopefully they can hear it in heaven. But I'd like to thank my dad and my uncles and my grandfather and everybody, my mom who's still alive. Thanks for teaching me how to cook. And I became pretty good at it. And just thank you, everybody. Check out our show. Let me know what you want to see. Let me know what you like. And reach out and talk to me because I will talk back.
Okay, one more time. How do people get in touch with you?
You can go on Facebook, which is Game On Prep the Plate in 30 minutes. You can go to our website, www.gameoncooking.com. You can look Game On the Food Channel and also on Bonko TV, Bonko TV. Search, it's under the food cooking segment, and it's Game On Cooking. We have 7 full episodes there, like full 20-minute episodes that you'll like.
Yeah. Shawn Bailey, thank you so much for a lot of trips down memory lane. I mean,
yes,
I was taking some video. I was pulling up out of my hard drive and going, oh yeah, that reminds me of this and that. And,
nice.
It was fun. I mean, I went to some places I haven't been in a while, and with people that I haven't seen. Maybe, well, I know I'll see them later on.
Well, you're with me with memories, though. You're right. You brought them back to me. Last thing I'm going to say is you got to say game on like sort of Cajun style. Game on. That's how I like to say that. So, Bruce, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. And thank you to all your fans. And it's a great thing. I appreciate it.
We got a couple of great people on next show, Whitetail Rendezvous. First is Jim Williams, president of Pope and Young. And I got my first co-host, Mia Ansting, who just recently got elected to the board at Professional Outdoor Media Association. Mia's going to talk to Jim about archery hunting and Jim's love for taking all sorts of game throughout North America and Africa with a stick and a string. Going to be a good one, folks.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.